Good morning, dear students. Today we will study chapter 15, Air Around Us. In this chapter, we will study about composition of air, how air is useful for us. We will see that air is a mixture of gases. We will study about these gases in detail, how the balance of oxygen and carbon dioxide is maintained in nature. We will study all these things in detail. So let's start. We know that air is present all around us. Air is very important for our survival. If we do not get food for 1 day, 2 days, we can survive. But if we do not get air, then we cannot survive. Air is very important for survival of all living organisms. And air, we cannot see air, but we can feel it. Okay. Most of the time you might have seen when strong winds blows, you might have seen that leaves and the branches of the tree, they show movement. Okay, and there are many other instances that at that time you might have feel the presence of air. It's so common. Now let us understand what is atmosphere. Around the surface of the earth, there is envelope of air. Okay, the envelope of air present around the earth's surface is known as atmosphere. It extends up to 200 kilometers above the earth's surface. Now we will study about the composition of air. Air is a mixture of gases. Okay, so let's see the composition of air. As I told you, air is mixture of gases. So let us see the composition of air. Air, it consists of 21% oxygen and 78% nitrogen. If you add these two, 78 plus 21, it will come 99. Okay, so 99% of the air, it is made up of oxygen and nitrogen. The remaining 1%, it consists of other gases like carbon dioxide, other gases like helium, neon, ozone, argon, etc. And this 1%, it also includes water vapors, dust particles, etc. So now, let us discuss about all these gases present in the air. Air contains oxygen and nitrogen. I told you nitrogen is the most abundant gas present in the atmosphere. Okay, because 78% of atmosphere, it is made up of nitrogen. 21% oxygen is the second most abundant gas present in the atmosphere. You can see 78% is nitrogen in the atmosphere and 21% is oxygen. Scientist Lavoisier, he named these components. He named oxygen as the active component of air and he named nitrogen as inactive component of air. Okay, you can see oxygen is 21% and nitrogen is 78%. If you see the ratio of oxygen and nitrogen in the air, it is about 1:4 by volume. Okay, now let's discuss about these gases in detail. Air contains oxygen and nitrogen. I told you air contains 21% oxygen and 78% nitrogen. Oxygen, it supports burning, but the nitrogen, it doesn't support burning. Oxygen is very important for the survival of all living organisms because we all living organisms, we breathe oxygen. This oxygen, it is used for the respiration process. This oxygen, it is utilized inside the body so as to obtain energy from the food that we eat through the process of respiration. So oxygen is very important for the respiration process, and due to respiration we get the energy from the food that we eat. And burning, it can only occur in the presence of oxygen. Now coming to the next, air contains carbon dioxide. If we talk about the amount of carbon dioxide, then air consists of 0.03% of carbon dioxide. Okay. Carbon dioxide is also useful because carbon dioxide, it is used by the plants. We know that plants can make their own food by the process of photosynthesis, and plants, they use carbon dioxide in the process of photosynthesis. And carbon dioxide, it doesn't support burning. It doesn't support burning. Carbon dioxide gas, it is also used in the fire extinguishers to put off the fire. Next is air contains water vapors. You might have seen when we put the clothes, wet clothes on a clothesline in the sunlight, after some time what happens? The wet clothes, they become dry. How is it possible? Because the water present in the wet clothes, it gets evaporated in the atmosphere. Okay, so because of which the wet clothes, they become dry. So the air contains water vapors. From where the water vapors come in the atmosphere? Water from the water bodies like rivers, oceans, seas, it gets evaporated due to heat of the sun. Okay, so the water vapors, they come in the atmosphere due to evaporation of the water from the water bodies, and secondly from the plants. Plants also excrete the water, excess amount of water in the atmosphere in form of water vapors through the process of transpiration. So air contains water vapors. You might have seen, take a glass, okay, put cold water in the glass. After some time you will see the tiny droplets on the outer surface of that glass containing the cold water. Why is it so? Because the water vapors present in that area near to that glass containing the cold water, so what will happen? Water vapors, they will come in contact with the cool surface of that glass, and the water vapors, they will cool down and will convert into the water droplets, and then they will be visible to us in form of the water droplets on the outer surface of the glass. Next is air contains dust and smoke particles. In air, there are dust particles remains present and smoke particles also. When we burn anything, smoke is produced. Okay, when we burn anything, then carbon dioxide is produced. And so when we burn something, smoke and many other gases are produced. So air contains oxygen and nitrogen. Air contains carbon dioxide, but in very small amount, 0.03%. Air contains water vapors. Air also contains dust and smoke particles. Now, in your book, activities have been given. You can see activity 15.1 on the page B88. So here you can see, take a bowl of water. Okay, take an empty glass. Now invert this glass in the water like this. You can see the water is not entering inside it. Now tilt the glass little bit. You will notice that water will start entering inside it. Why is it so? Because when we will tilt the glass, you can see when we will tilt the glass, so air inside the glass will get the way to come out, and then water will occupy that space. Okay, so you can see the air is coming out. Okay, you can see here the bubbles. Okay, and then water will enter in the glass to occupy that empty space. This activity shows that air is present all around us because there was nothing in the glass, but there was air inside the glass. Next is activity 15.3 to show that air contains carbon dioxide. Here you can see, for this activity we will need a long test tube containing lime water. Fill it half. Take a long test tube and a cork also, okay, so that we can close this test tube. So here you can see, this is a test tube we have taken. Half fill it with the lime water, okay, and then insert a straw in this test tube through the cork. Okay, cork has been used as to close the opening of this test tube. So insert the straw in this. Now blow air in this lime water through mouth. Okay, through this straw, from your mouth, blow air in this lime water. So you will notice that after some time, the lime water, it will become milky. Okay, because lime water can become milky in the presence of carbon dioxide. So this indicates that air contains carbon dioxide. Now coming on to the next page number B90. Air supports life. Yes, I told you air is very important for the survival of living organisms. Okay, air supports life. It will be clear with the help of this flow chart. Okay, we will see here how the balance of oxygen and carbon dioxide is maintained in nature. So what happens? Plants, they perform the process of the photosynthesis. In this process, they use carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and release oxygen in the atmosphere. I told you oxygen is utilized by all the living organisms for the process respiration. So oxygen will be utilized for the process respiration. And when we burn something, I told you burning can occur only in the presence of oxygen. So for burning, when anything burns, it consumes oxygen. And when we burn anything, then carbon dioxide is produced. Burn something, it consumes oxygen and producing carbon dioxide. Okay. So in the respiration process also carbon dioxide is produced. So here you can see in these both the processes, respiration and burning, carbon dioxide is produced in the atmosphere. It is released in the atmosphere. This carbon dioxide, it is again used by the plants for the process of the photosynthesis, and in the process of the photosynthesis, oxygen will be released in the atmosphere. Okay, so you can see here that how the balance of the oxygen and carbon dioxide is maintained in the nature. Photosynthesis is performed by the plants. Okay, so plants, they take carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and release oxygen in the atmosphere. So this oxygen, we know that we all living beings, human beings, animals, we take in oxygen and release carbon dioxide. So like this, plants and animals, they are interdependent and maintaining the balance of the oxygen and carbon dioxide in the nature. Okay. Now the question comes, how does oxygen it become available to animals and the plants living in water and soil? The aquatic animals, they take oxygen dissolved in the water. Okay, so let us also try to understand this, that water contains air. Let us try to understand this with the help of an activity. So here you can see, just take some water in a beaker, heat it on a tripod stand, heat it slowly. You will notice the air bubbles on the inner surface of the vessel. Okay, vessel means this beaker, or you can say container. You will see the air bubbles, tiny, very small air bubbles here inside on the inner surface of the vessel. When the water is heated, then the air dissolved in the water, it escapes. I told you water also contains air. Air remains dissolved in the water. Okay, so when you will heat the water slowly, you will notice that the air inside the water, it will escape out, because of which we will see the tiny bubbles on the inner surface of the vessel. If you will keep on continuing the water will first get converted into the water vapors and finally it will begin to boil. Okay, so this activity shows us that water contains air. Okay, so the aquatic animals, they take oxygen dissolved in the water. Now coming on to the next, to observe the presence of air in the soil. Now question comes, the organisms that remain in the soil, how do they get oxygen? Okay, in the soil also, between the soil particles, air remains filled. Okay, so the living organisms living in the soil, they get the oxygen from the soil, because in the soil particles, air remains filled. Sometimes you might have seen the earthworms during the rainy season, it comes out. Why? Because what happens during the rainy season, the spaces between the soil particle, it gets filled with the water. Okay, then the earthworms and these organisms living in the soil, they do not get the air, because water fills the space between the soil particles, and that's why the earthworm, they come out during the rainy season to breathe. Next is, how is oxygen in the atmosphere is replaced. This already I have explained, how the balance of oxygen and carbon dioxide is maintained in nature. Now lastly, we will discuss about the uses of the air, how air is useful for us. Air is very important for us. As I told you, air is important for the survival. It is required for the respiration, so as to obtain energy from the food that we eat. And other than this, in the chapter 5, separation of substances, we studied about the separation method, winnowing. In the winnowing, wind is required. What is wind? Air in motion is called wind. Okay, so wind is required for the winnowing process, and the air also helps in the movement of the sailing boats, gliders, parachutes, etc. Birds, insects, bats, etc. They also fly due to presence of air. Air helps in the transmission of sound. Air also helps in the dispersal of the seeds from one place to another. And wind, it helps in rotating the windmills. Okay, wind makes the windmill rotate. You can see here, this is windmill. Okay, you can see these are the blades of the windmill. This is windmill. These are the blades of windmill. So due to wind, the windmill rotates. And the windmill, it is also used for producing electricity. So dear students, this is all for chapter 15. Thank you.